Hi there, my name is John Bouye, and this is my CAP 1. Pathways our bodies use to produce ATP from the complete breakdown of one molecule of glucose and one molecule of fat. This is the diagram I will be using to further explain and show the process of the breakdown of glucose as well as fat and how it reacts within our bodies. So, to begin this process, I'll be talking about the 1 mole of glucose converted into energy, or as we know it as ATP. Glycolysis needs 10 enzymatic reactions in order for it to be broken down from glucose to pyruvate, which then is converted in phase 1 known as lactate or lactic acid. This is when NADH cannot sustain the process of glycolysis and is also known as the anaerobic glycolysis or rapid glycolysis. Phase 2 is when you have enough NADH that is able to sustain the glycolysis and goes from pyruvate into aerobic glycolysis, which I'll be getting into further in stage 2, and is considered slow, or as I stated, slow or aerobic glycolysis. So, glycolysis happens within the cytoplasm and then is broken down into pyruvate. So in stage 2, it goes from pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. This process is known as pyruvate oxidation and form NADH, two carbons which break off from pyruvate to form acetyl-CoA. And from this, hydrogen bonds are also, or hydrogen protons are also created to form, which form that NADH. So from this process, pyruvate acetyl-CoA goes to the Krebs cycle. Each acetyl-CoA entering the Krebs cycle releases the carbons and the 4 pairs of hydrogen protons to form the acetyl-CoA and the NADH molecules. So from this, the acetyl-CoA goes to the Krebs cycle and joins oxaloacetate to form the citrate within the Krebs cycle. But before this, it goes through proper steps. These steps include citrate, cis-aconitate, isocitrate, oxalosuccinate, ketoglutarate, succinyl-CoA, succinate, fumarate, malate, and back into oxaloacetate again. And since there are 2 pyruvate molecules from glycolysis, this process has to happen twice. So the production within the Krebs cycle is NADH, and 1 NADH is equivalent to 3 ATP. So in the Krebs cycle, there are 3 NADHs, so therefore from NADH, there are 9 ATPs produced. Next, another compound that is produced is FADH2, and only 1 FADH is produced in the cycle, and it produces 2 ATP. Next, another compound within this cycle that is produced is GTP, and GTP is only produced once and only produces 1 ATP. So in one total Krebs cycle, there are 9 ATPs produced, but since this has to happen twice, 18 ATPs are produced. In addition to that, the Krebs cycle also produces hydrogen protons, which are used as energy and broken down. And this process happens, the Krebs cycle process happens within the mitochondria. So from pyruvate to the Krebs cycle, it is transferred into the mitochondria, as we'll see in our diagram. So the next step is oxidative phosphorylation. This is also known as the electron transport chain. This is when reduced coenzyme complexes become oxidized and electrons are being passed off and lost, mainly passed off to other areas, and oxygen is being reduced. This happens through a protein gradient in which the compounds are being taken into and hydrogen protons are being released, creating the stored energy and producing ATP. It produces ATP. In this process, it produces ATP by going through ATP synthase, which I stated goes across the membrane, allowing the hydrogen proton atoms to go through a matrix to being changed into ATP. So from one glucose, the total amount of ATP is 32 ATPs. I will further break it down. The production of ATP from substrate level phosphorylation in the glycolytic pathway leading to the Krebs cycle results in 2 ATPs. A total of 10 NADH molecules are produced leading into electron transport chain. From this, 2 are in glycolysis, 2 from the process of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, and 6 from the Krebs cycle. And remember, every 1 NADH, there are 3 ATPs produced. So there are 32 ATPs, but 5 ATPs are used to energy transport as energy transport to transport ATP across the membranes, but another 3 ATPs from NAD molecules from electron transport chain. Lastly is the substrate level phosphorylation, which involves GTP. GTP adds another 2 molecules, making it a total of 32 yielded molecules from glucose. So in short, the process goes from glucose, goes through glycolysis, which produces pyruvate, which then yields acetyl-CoA, and is then taken through the Krebs cycle, then goes through the electron transport chain. Through all this, it produces 32 moles of ATP. Next is the breakdown of fat. So, and this diagram is also from the text of Mark Arnold, 2017. So, stage 1 is the breakdown of triglycerides into glycerol and free fatty acids. Stage 2 of free fatty acids into the blood. Stage 3, uptake of free fatty acids into the blood. Stage 4, prepare the free fatty acids for catabolism. Stage 5, activated fatty acids and then enter muscle mitochondria. Stage 6, break down a fatty acid and acetyl-CoA by beta oxidation, which then produces NADH as well as FADH2. This causes splitting of carbons, which then join the coenzymes. Beta oxidation continues to happen until the full breakdown of the fatty acid into acetyl-CoA, which then it goes through the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain. So let's go back to this. So as I stated, triglycerol is then broken down further into glycerol and fatty acids. Glycerol goes through the process of glycolysis, but it is only accepted as phosphatidylglycerolide. Sorry, that's a tongue twister for me. And then it goes through pyruvate, releasing hydrogen as we go along, and then it goes from pyruvate to form acetyl-CoA through substrate phosphorylation, which then it goes through from acetyl-CoA to the Krebs cycle and released as ATP and oxidized. So as for fat, fat goes through what we call beta oxidation. Goes through beta oxidation, which then is broken down in the electron transport chain, as well as it joins the coenzymes of the 2 carbon groups to go back to acetyl-CoA and go through the Krebs cycle in that way as well. So the combination of these two, from glycerol you get 19 ATP, and each molecule of fat has 147 molecules of ADP, which are transferred into ATP by the beta oxidation system, which then is a total of 441 ATP. Combine the two, you get a total of 460 ATP, as you can see in the diagram. And the diagram on the left is how it properly goes through the muscles into the mitochondria to produce that ATP. So how the pathways interact across exercise and intensity and duration. When considering glucose and its pathway, it doesn't need oxygen necessarily to break down. during its process. So those are considered phase one and phase two. And because of this, it is used as a primary energy source. And since it is being able to broken down, it is able to be broken down quickly. It's used for either light or moderate exercise or rapid exercise movements, such as high intensity or workout. While when considering fat, it is since it is longer to break down and has a greater energy source, it is mainly used during aerobic stuff and it needs oxygen. So it is aerobic, so it's mainly used during long marathons or during any prolonged types of exercise. This includes, as I stated, marathons, and it also includes when your glycogen system is depleted, that another energy source is needed. If you are, doing prolonged exercise, fat is the resource since it has stored energy. Limiting factors in ATP production. For glycolysis, a limiting factor is the NAD+. When it is unavailable, the other half of glycolysis is slow or tends to shut down, as well as in the text it says oxygen is another inhibitor. And oxidative phosphorylation, lack of oxygen is a limiting factor as well. For beta oxidation, it's definitely oxygen because oxygen is needed for the process to continue to further the production and catabolism of fat. So, in conclusion, based on the pathways and the energy provided from either glucose or fat, this applies to the real world by informing our bodies to use certain systems based on the selected type of demand our body recognizes through central nervous system, and by responding by selecting proper fueling system, whether that be glucose as a primary source or having to tap into uh, stored energy from fat based on either rapid exercise or prolonged exercise. In addition to that, it also it ties the real world by letting us know that we need to properly eat certain foods before certain exercises or have that type of fuel within our body to understand which system will be used when exercising. And this is my final conclusion, and thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.